Okay, so we are going to look at the second day that Grace Jabbari was on the stand. That was December 6th, and in the middle of the day, I think right around the afternoon break, it will actually turn over to cross-examination with Priya Chaudhry. We're going to try to get through all the direct, close that out. That way we can start doing these videos and look at what happens when she's questioned on everything she's testified to so far. Um, General housekeeping. I really want to get Danny and whoever else on. So I did set up StreamYard, but my audio sounds horrible on it. There's no interface for me to sit there and deal with the echo. So I'm gonna try to play around with that today and maybe we can work something out. If not, I'll have to struggle stream. I'm not really sure how to add multiple guests to Streamlabs without it kind of making the screen weird. It doesn't seem to automatically reframe all of the guest cameras. But who knows? We'll figure it out. Other than that, let me just share this stream link. And by the way, Streamlabs is good for one person. I just think it's not very good for streaming with guests. And on the flip side, Streamlabs is what I was talking about. StreamYard is very good to have a bunch of guests on with you, but some of the other features are really limited. So, pros and cons. Share this over here. Okay, so same thing. It's going to be Galloway continuing on direct examination. Good morning, Ms. Jabbari. Good morning. I'm going to start by directing your attention back to March 25th, 2023 at approximately 12:40 a.m. I just want to ask some clarifying questions. Now, if you tuned in yesterday when I was doing the end of day one testimony, the prosecution tried to ask Jabbari a dozen times, maybe more. Were you feeling any pain? Were you feeling any pain? Did you feel any pain? What, if any, pain were you feeling? And Grace just kind of kept going like, oh, it was just the shock. It was out of my mind. I wasn't thinking about it. So now, even though they were done talking about the car incident, this morning the prosecution has to walk back in and they have to come back and ask some clarifying questions to help make their case. So, um, let's see. Yesterday, you had testified that you saw a text messages on the defendant's phone that said, I wish I was kissing you. Yes, sorry. I don't know why she says sorry. I'm publishing what is in evidence as People's Exhibit 4D, as in dog. Judge, as we inform the court, we're going to have an associate assist. What we're going to do today, I don't know if you noticed yesterday, Mr. Perez almost killed himself. I think he tripped under some cables. So we need him for the rest of the trial. So obviously we're going to put other people at risk. In any event, what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow both sides, if they need technical assistance, to have somebody work the monitors. This way, the people are not walking back and forth before you tripping and hurting themselves. So that's what we're going to do this morning, okay? And we're going to rehash testimony that was heard yesterday, right? We're moving forward. Galloway says, yes, we are. Just clarifying questions. Court says, okay, thank you. Ms. Jabbari, you testified yesterday you had seen the defendant send a song. Yes. Is the substance of People's Exhibit 4D consistent with what you saw on the defendant's phone? So they're pulling up that D'Angelo lady photo. Yes, other than it was like the photo of the song that I saw him send, if that makes sense. I'm publishing to the jury. Hold on, wait. It takes some time to go and either grab a song link or grab a screenshot, pull up the song, grab a screenshot of the picture of the song, get over to a text message, paste it. If you type anything, you gotta type anything, and then wait for it to send. Why would he do all of that with her head leaning on his shoulder? I mean, maybe he really wanted her to see it, which would be, I guess, kind of funny, but it's another thing that she doesn't really seem to make too much sense about. I'm publishing to the jury what's previously in evidence as People's Exhibit 4C as in cat. Is this the text message that you were seeing, consistent with the substance of the text message you saw on March 25th, 2023? Yes. And did you come to learn who the defendant was texting? I just saw the name Cleopatra. Thank you. Yesterday, you had additionally testified that you felt pressure in your right hand during the incident in the car. Can you explain to the members of the jury what you mean by the word pressure? I just felt the force of his hands on my hands. I hope that's clear. Wasn't yesterday she was talking about like the pressures being all over? And then she was like, my head, shoulders, knees, and toes. And the prosecution was basically like, oh, you said it was your head, shoulders, and knees? And she's like, yeah. And she never like corrected that the prosecution left out one of the things she said she felt pressure in. And now she's just saying that when she said pressure, she just felt the force of his hands on my hands. So it sounds to me, somebody, I'm not going to accuse anyone of coaching, but the prosecution knew, and Jabbari seems to know, that they need to establish the mechanism of injury and present pain in this finger during the moment that they were in the car. So they come in this morning and they're panicking to ask all these clarifying questions. Chaudhry appropriately objects, asked and answered, oh, what was the defendant doing to cause that pressure? Objection, asked and answered, that's sustained. Let's move on to a new area because we went all through that yesterday. Mr. Perez says, can we approach on that? The court's like, let's just move on. If you need to clarify something, that's fine. But I think we did all that yesterday, unless you're going into something new. Okay, understood. What, if any, pain did you feel at the moment there was pressure on your hands? Objection, asked and answered. Your Honor, we reviewed the minutes, and I don't believe that had been answered. Yeah, because every time you tried to ask, I guess she was just, it was asked, for sure. But her answers were different every time, so I guess you didn't get the answer you wanted. All right, ask the question. What, if any, pain did you feel in your right hand while the defendant was applying pressure? So now they're narrowing it down to say, please, Jabbari, be descriptive about this thing that happened to your right finger. And I was saying, Jameer, you're saying you're trying to finish part 4 right now. You can always catch replay crew, or what I like to do is like 1.5 speed the video. And you can always fast forward through my rambling at the beginning of my videos. What, if any, pain did you feel in your right hand while the defendant was applying pressure? Yeah, I felt substantial pain in that moment. Couldn't see what he was doing, but it just felt really uncomfortable. So we've definitely heard her discuss what he was doing with her hands yesterday. And now she's saying, yeah, I felt substantial pain in that moment, but yesterday she was like, I don't know, I couldn't feel anything. I felt adrenaline. Was this the first time during the incident in the car that you had felt pain in your right hand? Other than when he was kind of prying my hands off the phone. So this is how they're trying to go back and establish her hand injury couldn't have happened during the part where she rips the buttons, and that it couldn't have happened when she was on her way to the bar or when she was at the bar. But yeah, other than when he was kind of prying my hands off the phone. You had also testified yesterday the defendant twisted your right arm. How long did he twist your right arm? It felt like for close to 30 seconds. That kind of thing, I would say. Do you remember what portion of your right arm? Just the whole of it. I mean, because I wasn't looking, I feel I can't say the exact movements he was doing, but the sensation of it was like everything was twisted, and he was just like trying to move me and trying to make me hurt, so I would, I guess, not be hiding from him. Well, you're not hiding from him, according to you. Because Jonathan Major says you never actually obtained his phone, but according to you, you're not trying to hide from him. You're trying to maintain possession of something that doesn't belong to you. Do you know approximately how long that would have lasted? Again, it's a hard thing to contextualize. Objection, asked and answered. This was just asked 2 questions ago. Judge says, I'm going to overrule that, and then we'll move on. Yeah, it felt longer than it potentially was, but I think probably, yeah, again, about the whole thing lasted. The hand thing, the turning, about, yeah, between 30 seconds and a minute. Thank you. And you were asked yesterday how much time had passed between what happened inside the car and what happened inside. You had testified, not much. What did you mean by not much? Objection, asked and answered. The court, that was asked and answered. How long approximately did the defendant's actions inside the car last in total? Objection, asked and answered, overruled. It felt like a couple minutes. You testified yesterday that your body felt light in his hands. Approximately, if you know, how much did you weigh on March 25th, 2023? About 120 pounds. How tall are you? 5'6". If you know, approximately how much does the defendant weigh? Maybe I would guess like double me, so 240. I don't know. Do you know how tall the defendant is? Approximately 6'2". Moving forward in the night. What did you do after arriving back at the Chelsea Mercantile? I walked in, I took my shoes off, took my coat off, got some water, and went up the stairs to bed. When you arrive at the apartment, how did you get into your apartment specifically? Okay. She's speaking generally. I think they're asking her to describe what she did, but okay, you go to the elevator to the top floor and walk down like a small corridor and then open the door with a key. At that point in the night, what was your pain level like in your hand? Again, it was this kind of full body experience of shock, so I wasn't really registering the full pain. I mean, she was also at minimum 9 drinks in, according to her own admitted testimony. What was definitely happening with my finger was that it had changed color slightly. It was kind of red. It was already kind of red according to you when you got in the taxi cab. But now you're saying it had definitely changed color slightly. It was kind of red. And I just had this really, really acute, I was really aware that something was not right because I know pain. But yesterday you testified, like, the way that you know pain is to not feel it. Like, I don't know. She sounds like she's trying to convince people. You know, being, as I said yesterday, a dancer, broken things before, and I just was like, that's not right. But again, I was just sad and in shock, still with everything that had happened prior. And then they published for the jury, People's Exhibit 5, Start to Play. That's that compilation video, starting to play in 1944. While they're setting that up, just to let you know what we're looking at, and both sides have agreed you should see this as an aid to you, is what's called a compilation video or a timeline video. That's why you're looking at these compilations. The captions that are on these videos that show the date and the time, they were intended only for your review of the evidence and review of the footage. Then they publish it. You could stop the video here at 21 minutes, 10 seconds. It's probably when she's like going through the lobby and elevator. Ms. Jabbari, on video surveillance, it shows that you were using your hand to go through your purse. Yes. How were you able to do that? I just was, like I said, I knew it was in pain, but it wasn't out of action. So her hand's like not part of her anymore. It's like separate from her. It was also the top bone in my finger. It wasn't my whole finger. It wasn't my whole hand, you know? And so I just remember like kind of prioritizing my index finger and thumb, but I'm also right-handed, so I was just trying to find my keys. So once I was out of the elevator, I just had it in my hand. What was your range of motion like in your finger at this point in time? I remember she talked about her range of motion in her finger while she was flicking Jonathan away, but not scratching his arm. I don't really recall. As I said, I was just so focused on where my heart's at, not my physical pain. You stated earlier that you had made your way into the apartment. What did you do when you first arrived at the apartment? I just took my shoes. Chaudhry. Objection. Asked and answered. That will be overruled. It was asked and answered, but I think it's leading to a different fact, so go ahead. Yeah, I just kind of took my outside wear off. Coat, shoes, got a glass of water, and went out. Our bed is like on the 3rd floor, so went up there. Yeah, so she didn't really want to say just the shoes thing. I don't know if there was a reason she wanted to start with that order. How many floors are in the apartment? 3. You stated your bedroom was on the 3rd floor? Yes. Where was the kitchen? On the bottom floor. What did you do when you arrived in the bedroom? I called Jonathan. Do you remember if the defendant had called you at this point? I don't recall if he had called me, but he had texted me. I'm publishing what is in evidence as People's Exhibit 4F. As a point of correction, this is the People's Exhibit 4G. Thank you. Mr. Jabbari, is this the substance of the text message you received from the defendant? Yes. How did you feel after receiving this text message? Confused. It had mixed messaging. What do you mean by that? Just that he's saying he loved me and he was never unfaithful, but he wouldn't answer that. He just ran away instead of saying he was never unfaithful, or he didn't want to prove it, you know? I just felt like, okay, let's talk about it. If you're saying you love me, but you were never unfaithful, tell me you were not unfaithful and show me the messages. It's easy in my head. Just so the record is clear, could you describe the color of the text message that are germane to Mr. Majors? And then Galloway says yes. Mr. Jabbari, if you could state which color is from the defendant, the blue. And then they publish the exhibit. Mr. Jabbari, is that what you respond to the defendant? Yes. Approximately what time did you send him a response? If I'm reading it there, it says 3:27 a.m. Is that when you remember sending the text? Yeah. What color indicates your text message? Gray. What color indicates the defendant's text message? Blue. What did you mean by the message that you sent to the defendant? I don't know. Yeah, I just really wanted to know what was going on. It was so confusing. I just wanted to speak to him. You know, we were living together. Where are you? What did you mean when you said you went crazy when I asked to see it? So I'm assuming that's what she said. You went crazy when I asked to see it. His actions in the car. She's gaslighting. That sounds like her other messages. His actions in the car. That was referring to the physical altercation? Yes. It also states that you had asked the defendant to call you. Yeah. Did there come a time when you did speak with the defendant? Yes. Can you explain to the members of the jury what, if any, conversation you had? We spoke. I was like laying on the bed upstairs, and he was kind of saying that he didn't do anything and that he loved me. And I said, you know, I'm here in pain and you're not here, but you're saying you love me. Just come here. All this is going to take is for you to explain yourself and we can carry on or not. But there's no conversation that we've had. He said, well, I'll come, but I deleted all the messages, so I just hung up the phone because I was upset. Now, this is all just her word. Because would have been audio over the phone. What did you understand the defendant's message in response? I'm answering to mean. Jabbari says, I was calling. Chaudhry says, objection. That's sustained. Move to strike. I don't know if there was an answer, but if there was an answer, it's stricken. I'm publishing what's in evidence to People's 5. Mr. Jabbari, do you remember reaching out to the defendant after speaking with him on the phone? Yeah, after I hung up. What did you do after you hung up? I just asked him to call me. I felt I had been irrational by hanging up, and actually, I wanted to continue the conversation. Was the defendant answering you? No. And approximately to the best of your memory, how many times did you call the defendant? A lot. Yeah, I don't know the exact number. Do you know for approximately how long you called the defendant? No. It wouldn't have been too long, but it felt like a really long time. What does that mean? It wouldn't have been too long, but it felt like a really long time. Now, I think we need to look back. So she says, oh, you got crazy when I asked to see the phone. Well, she thinks he's crazy anytime he wants to separate from her. Anytime, like just at the Glastonbury Festival, she thought it was crazy that he stopped talking to her. So if this text message says, you went crazy when I asked to see it, that just means he tried to run away. All of her descriptions were, he tried to run away. He didn't want me to see the phone. Anyway. So then, it also states that you had asked the defendant to call you. And then the way they present this is weird. They don't ask what time. It also states that you asked the defendant to call you. So this text message just be like, you went crazy, can you call me? That's what this text message probably reads like. And the way they're presenting this testimony by not giving timestamps or asking her if she called or texted before and after these things, it seems like what Jonathan Majors says when he says, I'm answering, must be after the part that they talk on the phone for this long, weird paragraph, and then she hangs up on him. But that's not clear. They don't actually ask her, they don't give any timestamps of when that's happening. So we know that there's some message where she says, you went crazy when I asked to see it, call me. And then Jonathan Majors says, I'm answering. And it seems like that's a 2-word text message response. And she starts to explain that she was calling, then goes into this whole detail about, he wasn't answering. I called him a lot. I don't know the exact number. And then it wouldn't have been for too long that I was calling him, but it felt like a really long time. And we have from information outside of the trial that it was 32 times that she called him, and it was like at intervals for like a couple hours, she just kept calling him. But the prosecution doesn't establish a timeline here. They make it seem like there's this text message, you went crazy, call me. Then they call, Jabbari hangs up because he tells her, according to her on the phone, oh, I deleted all the text message. And so she gets mad, hangs up, and then regrets hanging up. To me, it sounds like he answered one time. I can't trust her word at face value for what she's recalling happened during that conversation. He's not with it. He probably, what I think was more rational, he's sober at this point at the hotel, or maybe not, 5 drinks, maybe he's like almost sober. She continued to drink. She's only focused on this woman and the text messages at this point. There is one call between them, I'm assuming, because they wouldn't be testifying to it if it wasn't a call record. All of the other calls are unanswered attempts from Jabbari to Majors. And the previous text is, call me, from her. And he says, I'm answering. So when they get this call, would it be unreasonable to assume she immediately goes into, this woman, who is this woman? Tell me who this woman is, blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, the text message he had sent that she didn't see until she got home was something to the effect of, I love you, but I don't know what to do. And he answers thinking she's going to talk about what they're going to do, and she just ends up screaming about the phone and how could you, who is Cleopatra? So he just gets and hangs up. And she's trying to clean that up and say, I hung up on him because he said he deleted the text messages. But that doesn't make sense. If you hung up on him, it's highly unlikely that if you called him right back, he wouldn't just pick back up. If you're the one that ended the conversation when he wasn't ready to. Like, this all just seems like gaslighting. And then she's clearly downplaying how many times she called and how long it lasted, because we know she went and looked at the stuff that Priya released and that Business Insider published, which laid all of this out. It was also in, I think, the letter that Priya Chaudhry wrote to the court, which is public information. We know Jabbari went and watched this evidence because she said, oh, you mean the stuff that you leaked, to Priya? So I find it highly, highly unlikely. I think she's lying about a stupid detail here about how many times she called and how long she was trying to call for. But moving on. Hey, Andre, and hey, Silent. But yeah, if you guys, I can predict what you guys will say, but what do you think happened on that phone call where she claims that she was the one that hung up? But she goes on to say that her emotional state, I was exhausted. I was just kind of lying on the bed, feeling the pain in my body, but also just really desperate to speak to him. It's so confusing when the person you love betrays you, I guess, in that way, And I think it was adding to, I was just really upset, I guess. And that's the only way to put it. Heartbroken. Did there come a time when you stopped trying to contact the defendant at night? Yeah. I realized he wasn't answering, so I just stopped. What did you do after that? Tried to sleep. Yeah. What did you mean by that? I was like lying on the bed, got ready for bed, took my clothes, makeup off, and everything. And that's where we get the makeup thing. And went to bed and realized I couldn't really lie in a lot of positions due to the pain I was in on my body. I realized I couldn't lie on my right side at all, and I just felt hideous. So I just thought, okay, I'm going to off it. If I can't sleep, I'll just take a sleeping tablet or two. So she decides to take a sleeping tablet right after we hear that Jonathan Majors stops answering her. Do you remember how many sleeping tablets you took that night? 2. Do you remember what kind? Yeah, like, you can get them on the shelf in CVS. Not even prescribed or anything like that. Just pick them up. Have you taken them before? Yeah. When do you usually take them? I normally take them if I know I have to be up earlier, have a show or a job, especially if I've been traveling, if my jet lag isn't right, if I'm up at weird hours. I would do that to regulate my sleep just so I work better in life at sleep, you know? So I take them to regulate my sleeping pattern. I need to, yeah. But you weren't working. You're trying to make this all about your work and travel or show and a job. But you weren't working for the time that you were in New York. But you had sleeping pills already. So that's not, work isn't, and she's like literally only stating that those are the reasons that she takes it, is work, show, job, traveling for work. But none of that has anything to do with what she's in New York doing. Like, she always has to make a positive perspective about anything that she describes that she does. Unequivocally. Like, she can't just let one thing be candid and normal. But yeah, she was probably trained on what topics to avoid, to go into detail on. I agree. Her responses are so robotic and stilted. Does she really talk like that? Well, and then if you remove the filler words, half of it doesn't make sense in order. Then Andre says, I honestly don't believe she remembers any of the conversations they had. That's why she recorded that one conversation, because she was drunk so much, she has selective memory. That combined with someone who not only doesn't seem to want to listen to hear, but also has to rework the things that are being said to them that may involve their own actions just to protect their own ego. Like, that's 3 reasons right there where someone's recall about a conversation they had with somebody could be completely unreliable. And then, yeah, the sleeping pill. But yeah, she like gave this whole rambling paragraph about how her use of sleeping pills is totally normal and not anything to raise an eyebrow at. Is there a normal amount of sleeping pills that you typically take? 1 or 2. You said that you couldn't lie in a lot of positions. Could you explain what you mean by that? Yeah, I cannot lie in the right side of my body at all. The back of my head also hurt. It was just everywhere hurt. As I said a few times, I'm used to like a muscle ache, but mostly used to pain inflicted in certain other ways, and this just felt so uncomfortable. Yeah, I couldn't find a comfortable position to sleep in at all. What happened next? I took the sleeping tablets, fell asleep for, it couldn't have been more than 2 or 3 hours, and I just woke up in pain. So I don't think she's being accurate, maybe not honest, but I'm going to say accurate to not be too biased. But if she doesn't recall the time span that she was sitting there trying to call Jonathan Majors, and we know on the outside that it was like a 2 hour, almost 3, that she was like still trying to call him. And then she says she thinks she took a nap for more than 1 hour. If this all started around 3:45, 3 something in the morning, she's texting and calling him for, let's say, 2. That pushes it to 5. She sleeps another 2 hours. We're somewhere at 7 o'clock. And again, this isn't, the prosecution could have introduced timestamps, but they don't. Because they had the attempted calls They could have, but they're not. Yeah, can you explain what you mean when you woke up in pain? Oh, yeah. So then she says, I woke up in pain. And can you explain what you mean by woke up in pain? Yeah, I think anytime I kind of moved to my side, I would wake up, even though I had taken sleeping tablets. Yeah. So is she like trying to play double-edged sword with these sleeping tablets? Like, the pain is so bad now that even my regular sleeping trick can't work. Yeah, it was really painful to sleep. So anytime I would move out of a position, it would wake me up. What did you do after waking up? I noticed that, like, the hair on my head was stuck behind my ear. Sorry, and yeah. So I was just thinking, like, I know I couldn't lie on my right side, and I just thought somebody hit me on the head. I thought, what is going on? I had no idea. And I started realizing I could peel the hair off my ear, and then I started, like, kind of feeling it. So she's starting to feel like I just thought somebody hit me on the head. That's the pain she starts to feel now, and her ear is bleeding. And there was like dried blood, I guess. And so I was just like, what is this? Also, my finger hurt. At that point, it turned more or less black. So yeah, I was kind of like also, think I've realized the full extent of the bruising on my body from the car. And then, hey, we don't have any pictures of the bruising on the body, do we? Maybe they didn't release that in that um whatever was released. And then I kind of went to the mirror to try to have a look at what was going on physically, but did you see anything when you looked in the mirror? I was trying really hard, but it. And then Chaudhry says, objection. That was not an evidence. The question that was just asked. There was no foundation for it in witness testimony. Boom, Priya Chaudhry. That's exactly it. Where there was nothing stated about bruises on the body. She's just. The court says overruled. Okay, so Galloway says, go ahead. And Jabbari's like, can you repeat the question? I don't remember what bullshit I was just saying. So, yes, what, if anything, did you see when you did try to look in the mirror? I couldn't really see anything because it hurt too. Like, move it. I could move the top of my ear with a lot of pain, but I would have to really forcefully look to, the angle of the mirror just wasn't working. I, like, held up a makeup mirror, and I saw something was not right. So, like, cleared my hair, and I was trying to take photos with my iPhone of it. And you said that your hair was stuck. Can you explain what you mean by that? Yeah, I think that night I'm very fidgety. You probably all noticed. But also when I'm stressed. So she's like, yeah, believe me, I'm fidgety, right? So I think that whole night I was kind of like putting my hair behind my ear and again in my sleep. I guess I slept with it behind my ear and it just had dried to whatever was going on there. So she's trying to explain the whole night, that why nobody saw it. So I think that night I'm very fidgety. You probably all notice, and I know you're gonna have to keep watching this video of me tying my hair all the time, but also when I'm stressed. So I think that whole night I was just putting my hair behind my ear, and again in my sleep. I guess I slept with it behind my ear, and it had just dried to whatever was going on there. Well, if that's your description of what's going on, how was your hair able to flow and then be tucked back and then flow and then be tucked back all night? You either had liquid blood back there if you already had that injury and it was going to be visible, or it was dry and you were going to have to rip it every time your hair found itself out because you had to repeatedly keep brushing your hair behind your ear throughout the night. So she's really trying to make sense of that. But what was the first time that you noticed any blood in your ear? Yeah. What? Oh, was that the first time? I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Why is she just saying yeah? Was that the first time you noticed any blood in your ear? Yeah. So she doesn't notice blood any of the time. She keeps doing this fidgeting thing that she does all night long. Was that the first time you noticed your pain in your ear? Objection, leading. The court's like, yeah, that is leading. When was the first time you noticed pain in your ear? I noticed. Objection, asked and answered, overruled. I noticed pain in the side of my head, and I felt like I had a headache throughout the night. I couldn't localize the pain at that point until the morning when I fell asleep, or was trying to sleep. But you did say you woke up, that you kept waking up. And now you're saying you were just trying to sleep. You're correcting yourself saying you fell asleep to, or when I was trying to sleep. But you said earlier you woke up every time you rolled over. I was very aware that I absolutely couldn't lie on the right side of my head. It was not an option. So then would probably be the first time I noticed, but I didn't specify my ear hurts. It was just very everything hurts situation. I'm showing you what I've previously marked as People's Exhibit 12 for identification purposes. And then let's see. So Maya says, or maybe it's May, sorry, a night of drinking, running, and phone stealing will have you in pain when you wake up. Although to be fair, there's probably still a good amount of alcohol in her system. If we go with that like 7 o'clock timeline when she's done trying to take a nap as being around the time she's looking in the mirror, you know, like they were at the restaurant kind of late, so like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. They had 2 drinks at BAM. They had 5, maybe 6 at the restaurant. And then she drinks all this stuff with Chloe and the gang and then comes home. So she's drinking all the way up until like 3 something in the morning. And this is only maybe about 4 hours later. So, and she took the sleeping pills, just 2, but even if you just took 2, you took alcohol, you know, alcohol can numb pain, so it's possible she's not feeling what she's going to feel like in the morning when she has to tell the officers, like, I'm in pain, I just woke up on the floor. So they pull out Exhibit 12, People's 12 marked for identification being shown to the witness. Do you recognize the photograph? Yes. What do you recognize it to be? My ear. Oh, and I just realized the reason she's going through this whole paragraph, let's see. Where is this whole long paragraph describing about how she can't see anything when she looks in the mirror, even though she's using a double mirror to angle. And I just want to be clear, dancers a lot of the time, especially when they're starting, they have to do like their own appearance prep, their hair, their makeup. You can't convince me, especially if this chick went and claimed the $250 of toiletry products in the Victims' Compensation Fund claim, that she doesn't know like a general makeup routine or how to look in the mirror to see how something's going on. So she's going through this unnecessary description of how she was trying so hard but absolutely just couldn't see what was going on behind her ear. Why? Because she had said that she took her makeup off when she got home and never mentioned seeing blood at that point. That the only time, the first time she noticed this blood was 7-ish in the morning when she was waking up from the nap she never fell asleep for. Anyway, Mr. Jabbari, do you recognize the photograph? Yes. What do you recognize it to be? My ear. How do you recognize that? I took the photo. Do you know approximately what time the photo was taken? In the morning, that morning. Is this a fair and accurate depiction of your ear on the morning of March 25th, 2023? Yeah, so she doesn't want to say the time. Yeah. People would move exhibit for People's Exhibit 12 for identification purposes. No objection from Chaudhry. Publish it to the jury. Could you explain where the injury to your ear was located? By pointing to my ear? Whatever's easier for you. Yeah, like behind it, I guess. If it's hard to explain, that little crease between your ear and your head. Do you want to describe for the record? Yes. And then Galloway says, let the record reflect Miss Jabbari put her fingers behind her right ear. What was your pain level at the point of taking this photograph of your ear? Very high. Had you fallen at any point before taking this photo? Zuckerman. Okay, Zuck, let's go. Objection, Your Honor. As to what? Leading. All right, it's leading, but go ahead. Follow up with the question. Did there come a time when you fell that night? Objection, still leading. That's overruled. Go ahead. No, only when he pushed me back inside the car. Did you take any other photographs of your injuries? Yes. What would that be? I took a few photos of my ear because I didn't know if I was getting it, and I took photos of my finger. I'm showing you it's been pre-marked as People's Exhibit 13. Is there a lot of photos? And Galloway says, was that a lot? Is there a lot of photos? Do you want to mark them all at the same time, show them to the defense, unless you want me to do them one by one? I'd like to do them one by one, thank you. And then Chaudhry says, could I look at them? I'll let them do it the way they want. If you want to do it one by one, you could, but if you want to put them into a group, you could do that too. Thank you. And then they mark 13. Mr. Jabbari, do you recognize this photograph? Yes. What do you recognize it to be? My finger, my hand. How do you recognize it? I took the photo. Do you know approximately what time it was taken? The same. Morning. And which hand is this a photograph of? My right hand. Is this a fair and accurate depiction of your hand, your right hand, on the morning of March 25th? Yes. Moving to Exhibit 13. No objection. I'm happy to stipulate if they just want to show me these. I'm sure you are, but I'll let them do it one by one. Mr. Perez says thank you. People's 13 is now moved into evidence. And then jury sees it. And then as that's being done, show all the pictures you're going to introduce. While they're conversing, you could do the next one. Where were you? I wonder how much time they looked at each picture. Where were you when you took this photograph? I was lying in my bed. What, if anything, did you do after taking the photograph of your ear and finger? I tried to get in contact with one of my friends. Who would that be? Holly. How did you try to get in contact with her? I tried to call her, and she didn't answer, so I texted her seeing if she could call me. Was there a point in time that you did get in contact with her? Yes. What, if anything, did you do with the photographs you had taken? I sent them to her, whilst on the phone to her, telling her. One moment, Your Honor. I'm showing the witness evidence pre-marked as People's Exhibit 14 for identification purposes. So she just, like, right away went and sent these photos. I'll have to look at the transcripts for Holly. But the prosecution's not really clear. It says, was there a point in time you got in contact with her? It just says yes. What, if anything, did you do with the photographs you had taken? I sent them to her while on the phone, telling her. So I wonder how quickly she's speaking to Holly, and it's just like firing these injury photos off. I'm showing the witness evidence pre-marked as People's Exhibit 14 for identification purposes. Your Honor, I stipulate to the admission of all these. Great, thank you. Each one will be admitted into evidence without objection, and you can go through the photos individually. Thank you. Is that acceptable? Yes. They're showing 14. Mr. Jabbari, what do you recognize People's Exhibit 14 to be? Me sending the pictures I sent to Holly. What format did you send them to her? On WhatsApp. Is that what you mean? Yeah, on WhatsApp. Do you know approximately what time you sent them to her? In the morning. Yeah, this is, I think, in English time. What is the time zone the screenshot is taken in? 5 hours after, so about 7 a.m. I think 7 and 8 a.m. Between 7 and 8 a.m., depending on the time zone? Yes. Galloway, I asked this to be published to the jury. Where were you when you were speaking with Holly? Now remember, she says she spoke to Holly for hours. But if this is supposed to be 7 and 8 a.m. New York time, and she only starts calling Holly around 7 a.m., she fired these photos off instantly. What was your emotional state when you were speaking with her? I was, tired, but also just trying to, she's one of my best friends, so I was just trying to go through what to do next. And she was being very supportive. She was one of the few people that I had. Sorry. I'll stop you there. What do you mean by tired? I was just, I probably had about 2-3 hours sleep, and I was in so much pain. My body just felt really, really drained. Yeah. How are you feeling physically while speaking to her? Awful. Yeah. I was in a lot of pain physically, and was tired, and maybe starting to feel hungover. Did there come a time later, and she doesn't mention nauseous. She's going to puke, but she has not mentioned anything about nausea at all. Did there come, and no dizziness. If you had a head injury, you could conceivably be dizzy for reasons that have nothing to do with alcohol. She doesn't mention any dizziness, anything that would commonly, after heavy drinking while you're starting to come down. She doesn't mention any of those telltale hangover approaching symptoms. Did there come a time later on that morning when you reached out to the defendant? Yes. Okay, so later in the morning, she reaches out. What color are the text messages from you? Gray. Approximately what time did you reach out to the defendant again, to the best of your memory? Yeah, around 7 a.m. Why did you ask the defendant to call you? I think I just wanted closure, and... Yeah, go ahead, Chaudhry. Excuse me, Your Honor, it has an exact timestamp. I'd like the witness, she's reading from the exhibit, to say the exact time and not approximately. Woo, Jabbari tried to pull a fast one. But that's the thing, like, she's always, like, so eager to read the timestamps. She's like, oh, if I go by the photograph, it says 9:32 p.m. But now that they're looking at those, they're about to get to that text message where we know she said there's no note just letting you know what happened. We don't know what happened before that. They're talking about one of these text messages right before that. She's like, around 7 a.m., just approximately. Why did you ask the defendant to call you? I think I just wanted closure. So she's like on the phone with Holly and also sending Majors. After sending these injury photos to Holly that Jonathan Majors did to her, she's claiming did to her, she's also like, well, let me text while I'm on the phone with Holly. See if he can call me. Because I'm really only on the phone with this chick because he's not calling me. So she says she just wanted closure. The witness apologizes. Should I do that? Oh, she wants Galloway to fight for her. The court says you could say the time. There's one at 7:47 a.m. There's one at 7:51 a.m. and there's one at 7:52 a.m. First of all, if it's 7:47, put it in the chat. Are you gonna say it's about 7 o'clock? Or are you gonna say it's about 8 o'clock? 7:47 a.m. Do you say it's about 7 or about 8? But there's 3 timestamps there. She says, yeah, around 7 a.m. So those must be the last 3 as we get up to that there's no note text. Why did you ask the defendant to call you? As I said, I think I made a really clear decision in my mind that this was not a good relationship. I think the cheating was the identifying factor, and that somehow that was the thing that made it clear. In the same breath, I'm living in this apartment with him. All my stuff is there, literally, everything I own, and I hadn't had a conversation with him. I'm about to leave. I don't ever want to see him again, but I just felt like we're adults and we should talk this through. She doesn't mention anything about wanting to talk to him because, she loved him here. But that's her whole rationale for staying. She doesn't mention that at all. She's just like, oh, I'm calling him because I decided I wanted to end it, but all my stuff is here. So, Galloway, publishing what isn't already in evidence, People's Exhibit 4K. Ms. Jabbari, what time did you send the message on the screen? 7:52. What color is that message? Gray. And this is so important. So let me check the chat. We're going to get into reading that. You may have seen me break this down on X. It's a huge lie. We know it's a lie that there's no note just letting you know what happened is not referring to her saying, you assaulted me, but she's going to characterize it that way. There's an even bigger lie about how she talks about packing and moving. But let's see. Yeah, so Silent, I think she fidgety sliced her own ear. Yeah. Like, you talk about how you're doing this all night, and then you have a slice down the side of your ear. Hey, Hines! And that guy McFly, Grace should get the role of King. She's a hell of an actress. No, but then Kang's movement, he'd be like a visual, I don't know, he'd be like a wacky inflatable arm flailing tube man. And yeah, I would say about 8. About to leave. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's really, yeah, right. We're gonna get to that. This is a huge lie. And remember, this is on direct. This is Galloway asking her questions. This isn't even Priya attacking her. And it's going to be distanced in time. So she's gonna start talking about how this text message is supposed to mean she was moving because you assaulted me last night. This message was her saying in a text message, you attacked me. Because there's an issue. She never mentions him physically harming her in any of the text messages that she sends him that night. So now she's going to try to say that there's no note just letting you know it happened was her saying, you physically hurt me, because she's never said it. She's never said it anywhere. And she's also going to say it was her saying she wanted to move. We're going to, in this same morning session of court, we're going to get to Ben Toddy helping her pack. And Grace Jabbari's a whole lie. Thana, hey Thana. The MCU Thanos level threat. Okay, so what did you mean by stating this message to the defendant? Just, he wasn't talking. So I said, okay, goodbye, no night, nothing. You don't need to hear me again. This is it. Fine. If that's what we're doing, fine. Let me be. And remember those do not disturb texts, how she described putting on do not disturb, and she put it on so she could be productive at work, but he got mad and crazy at her because he got the message that this user has do not disturb on. Do you want to send the message anyway? And she was like, oh, I don't even know how the feature works. No, that was her. The do not disturb was her saying, fine, I'm gonna put you on do not disturb. If you're not going to talk to me, I'll D&D you. So this is the same mindset here. You don't need to hear me again. This is it. Fine. If that is what we're doing, fine. Let me be. What did you mean by there's no note? No conversation, no writing, nothing. What did you mean by just you knowing what had happened? Wait, is that how that's worded? Well, let me find those TMZ texts. Because now when you search text, these texts don't come up. I should have saved it. Just you knowing what happened. Oh, so she does. She doesn't even say letting you know what happened. She says just letting know what happened. That's kind of weird wording. Just you knowing what had happened. He knows. He knows what he's done. He's cheated on me. He's attacked me, you know. Do you remember independently receiving the response from the defendant? I remember just making a decision to not really look at the messages anymore, even if it came through. I didn't register it. Yeah, you don't want to admit to the jury that he said, did you leave the keys? Goodbye, Grace. Do you remember independently receiving the response from the defendant? I remember just making a decision to not really look at the messages anymore, even if it came through. So, did I close those already? I gotta stop doing that. Like, wait, why doesn't this, is this not, let me shrink it. There we go. So, did you leave the keys? Goodbye, Grace. I know it's really small. Oh, I made a point. I wasn't gonna look at it. But then I'm gonna send all this shit. Oh my God. After trying to get him to talk to you all morning, oh, I'm not gonna look at him when he finally does answer me. Like, there's no way. And now I didn't register it. By this point, I had spoken to Holly and just thought, I'm getting out of here. So now this is why she's going to decide to pack suddenly. What, if any, locks do you have in the bedroom? You could lock the room fully. What happened next? I was on the phone to Holly, and she was... Can I say what she was saying to me? No. Okay, sorry. I didn't understand. That's okay. I had decided to leave. I was set to be leaving the next day, because she has her 2-week work thing in London, but I was wanting to get out of the apartment that day. However, I was extremely tired, and I just needed like a few hours sleep more, so I could gather the strength. Could barely move my body at this point, and I was just like, let me just sleep a little bit more, because I felt exhausted. So I locked the door, because I know the defendant, and I believed in, I don't know what I can say or not. The court judge says, ask another question. What did you do after locking the door? I went back to sleep. Basically, I just said to Holly, I'll go, and I'm going to leave. I want to, but I'm so tired, and I just needed sleep. But in order to feel safe, I just needed everything locked because I was scared he was going to come back, basically. Why were you scared he was going to come back? The way it had been in our relationship. So, If this is the way it's been, are you always calling him 32 times until he finally comes back? What do you mean? If you've done A and you know the result, the way it's always been in the relationship is that B will happen when you do A. What happened all these other times that you're saying B happened? That means you also were doing A. Chaudhry objects, that's overruled. You said that you were so tired and you were trying to fall asleep. Where did you fall asleep? On the bed. They can take that back? What? Oh, they must have been handing like a picture, a photo exhibit back. What did you do after falling asleep on the bed? After I fell asleep, and so this is after 8 a.m. After I fell asleep, I woke up and I felt really sick. Like my body was just like, whoa, no. So I was kind of like started being sick, and I ran to the toilet and I was throwing up. Now, what time did these messages come in? 8:58 a.m. is when, did you leave the keys? Goodbye. And she's already made it clear. Oh, I didn't look at these messages, but this is the moment I just suddenly get sick. Maybe you got really anxious because you did actually look at the text messages when they came in at 8:58, and that's why around this exact same time, you're kind of like starting to be sick and running to the toilet and throwing up. Did you know why you were being sick? I think it was the pain, the lack of sleep, probably some of the alcohol, just a combination of my body not being happy. What happened after you were throwing up? Okay. So she says she runs to the toilet and was throwing up. She doesn't say she threw up in the bed. After I threw up, I just kind of felt exhausted again, and my head was really aware, like, I just need to pack and get out of here. But it kind of sounds really ridiculous, but the floor in the bathroom area is heated. I was like, okay, I'm going to pack, but I'm going to lie down, and I just kind of fell asleep, I guess. It's not like extremely like I laid down and fell asleep. Now she's adding levels to her likes. There's just like, there's kind of like, and there's extremely like. I laid down and fell asleep because I don't think we need to make a Jabbari scale because I don't think we ever lie down and remember the point we fell asleep. Well, you remembered in your testimony a few minutes ago that you fell asleep and woke up every time you rolled onto your right side that was in pain. And then had to walk that back and say when you're trying to fall asleep as if you never actually did fall asleep. But because I don't think we ever lie down and remember the point we fell asleep. And she's like, Jerry, you know what I mean? Your memory can be bad about that stuff too, right? I just remember feeling like I want to be dozing a little bit longer before I start packing up my life. So you're worried about packing up your life, not worried about making sure you're safe because you know how the relationship is and you have to lock the doors and he's going to come back and you would be scared. You're not worried about that. You're just worried about having to pack up your life for the trip you're going on tomorrow. How were you able to sleep on the floor of the bathroom? It was just warm and I was exhausted. As I said, I was just in a lot of pain and tired and just emotionally drained and overwhelmed. I felt just pure exhaustion. I could fall asleep anywhere in that moment, I believe. Yeah, you're like really trying to make it make sense why you were on that floor. And this is interesting to me because why would it matter so much why she was on that floor? If you actually passed out there, you passed out there. But why do you need to keep saying it, describing it, convincing somebody that there's a reason that you fell on that floor except that you purposely placed yourself there? Why do you need to make that argument so hard? Were they warm? Why were they warm? It was a heated floor. We gotta look up that penthouse. It's like a over $10 million penthouse. See if it advertises the heated floor feature specifically for the closet part of the master bathroom. And what is the next thing you remember occurring? The next thing I remember is being sorry. The next thing I remember is just waking up or being woken up to loads of officers, feeling really overwhelmed. Wow. So she doesn't testify about, talking to Holly about how she was going to move and pack. Remember him coming home. She just acts like she blacked out. She's putting on this blacked out type of image of the timeline here. The next thing I remember is being sorry. Then is she sniffling? The next thing I remember is just waking up or being woken up. So the officers woke her up. That's her testimony right there. The officers woke her up. So she is stating here she was asleep. She was unconscious. She wasn't awake and aware until the officers. Feeling really overwhelmed. I had only clothes I went to bed in, which was a jumper. No, nothing else. Nothing, anything else. And just a room full of men. Yeah, that is the next thing I remember. Why didn't you have anything else on? Yeah, you gotta establish that, prosecution. I normally sleep with nothing on, but I did put a jumper on, so that was what I was sleeping in. Now, do you guys remember that 911 call? Did he mention that she was naked just from the second half down in the 911 call? Or did he say that she was naked? Because someone else made a comment, and I meant to go revisit that. But I do think I remember him saying that she was naked from the second half down. But someone pointed out that it sounded like he said in the 911 call that maybe she wasn't wearing this jumper. So I might have to look at that after I get done with reading through this video. Let me catch up with you guys before we get to this, what she's gonna say to the officers. Okay. Hey, QT Line. That guy McFly says, Grace is a sociopath. She manipulated Jonathan and her friend, the police. Literally anybody who would listen. She manipulated an entire nonprofit organization. How do you want to end things with someone while sitting in their house all night? I'm confused. Because it's her house. That's why. It's her house. It's her life. Jonathan's just living in it. But he controls everything at the same time. Yeah, scared in his home. Hasana, this is BS. Yeah, all those faces. I don't think you put enough laughing faces there. I think there might need to be more. Will the 32 text messages be talked about in the appeal? As 32 calls. She also sent text messages, but the 32 is referring to the dial that she made that went unanswered to him. Yeah, she mixed sleeping pills and alcohol, and I've never taken sleeping pills, but just anecdotally from other people's experiences, I've heard that that's something that can have a compounding effect. It's not just the pure effect of a sleeping pill mixed with the pure effect of alcohol. And if we take her word at it, she says she took 2 sleeping pills. We don't know the milligrams, but she took 2 of some CVS generic brand over the counter. And then we know she had at least 9 drinks and weighs 120 pounds. But she says she ate a lot of meat. A lot of meat, and that's why she wasn't feeling the alcohol at the restaurant, because she ate a lot. And then issues with sleeping in a bed, but easily went to sleep on the floor, or in the bathroom floors. Insane. That is really insane. And that's the thing, these lies are so, they're so just off the tip of her tongue that some of it flies to me while I'm reading it, and then I come to the chat, and you point out over here, she can't sleep in the bed, but she can sleep on a bathroom floor, which I think it looked tiled. It was a hard floor, but tile can be a little bit harder than some cheaper materials, like vinyl materials. And she's just cozily sleeping there with nothing but a layer of a jumper on one part of her body. If she's laying on her hip, it might be hip bone, skin, to the tile without even a layer of fabric between it. Oh my god. And then Sana says, so she was in the bathroom when she woke up in the closet by officers. Yep, and again, she's saying she was woken up by the officers. She's saying, yep, I was for sure asleep. I was not awake until those officers stepped over me and woke me up. That guy McFly, Grace had no clue how she got on the floor when she asked if Jonathan did something. She has no clue. But yet she remembers everything about the night now that she has to testify. Then yeah, okay, so 911 call, he says waist down, naked from the bottom down. Oh, you guys are good. Yeah, it's because her tolerance is high from habitual alcoholism. Juanita, that's why I loved that one little part where she was like, the prosecution asked about Jonathan Major's alcohol tolerance. She's like, I can never really tell with him. And it's like she was trying to insinuate Majors had a high tolerance rather than just acknowledging, maybe he doesn't drink as much and as often as I do. Hey, Grace Jabbari, if you were watching this, you are always welcome to come chat with me. We can do it. You can call me 32 times. We can talk about this because I want it to make sense. Like, make it make sense. I'll listen. If you can make it make sense, I'll listen to it. And I will tell people your story. And if you want to tell me how this makes sense, I'll tell people I was wrong. And then that guy McFly, when you sneaking drinks behind your date's back, you have a problem with drinking. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I really had to, because Danny talks about that, and then they replay that when Jimmy was in court. And hearing those details, I had to sit there and process it and be like, how, how could she have been trying to sneak the drink? Like, how would he not notice that the glass was empty when he came back to the table? Like, she would have had to, either they walk around with pitchers and fill it up, but then when it was explained, it was after they signed the check. They were done with the table. They were about to just be moving it this way to the door. But he stops to go pee. There was no reason he would have gone back to the table to see that the drink had been chugged. It was a true sneaky moment. No way about it. But yeah, 32 times. So let's get into what happens now because she jumps this timeline. She lays on the floor. In the bathroom, not the closet. She lays on the floor in the bathroom, falls asleep because it's warm, wakes up because the cops wake her up. When you say officers, what kind of officers do you mean? I think there were a few police officers. There's also, I actually think there was like maybe a paramedic, eventually someone from like the fire department or something like that. Yeah. And did you call the police? No. Did you understand why the police had been called? No, but I started to with their questioning of what was happening. And when the police first came, what was the emotional state at that point? Just totally overwhelmed. Like the last thing I had in my memory was being alone, feeling safe-ish. It was so overwhelming, just being a woman, half naked, surrounded by big men. It was just not the nicest feeling I've ever experienced in my life. What was your physical pain level like at that point? Really high, but kind of overwhelmed with what was going on. I felt more present. You felt present, but all your questions are about to be, I don't know what's going on. What was the pain, if at all, in your arm at this point? Yeah, I was in a lot of pain everywhere. It felt like either I'd been hit by a bus or done a really extreme exercise class, and I hadn't done one for a year. Like just achy and battered. Battered? Oh my god. Did you observe the defendant at this point? No, I remember hearing him. Did you tell the officers how you sustained your injuries? And Zuckerman objects, Your Honor. That's overruled. I know I alluded to it in the safest way I felt possible. Yes or no? What did you mean by the safest way that you felt? I could hear Jonathan in the next room, so I didn't want to say exactly what happened, but I also saw this as a moment to have a bit of help in leaving the relationship. Did you want to tell them what had occurred? Objection, leading, sustained. What did you mean by alluded to how you sustained your injuries? It was a really overwhelming situation because it's like something I wanted to do. She didn't want to do it, it's like something she wanted to do. I wanted to just say, like, help me, please. Sorry. But as I've said previously yesterday, like, I was never going to tell anyone about anything in our relationship, ever, except a very few, very close people, like Holly, who I immediately just sent those photos to as soon as she answered the phone, and we're going to find out they hadn't spoken to each other in a while. Very close people that I had trusted, so it was confusing to me to feel, and Priya, so it was confusing to me to feel like the help, and the 3 strangers, you didn't really tell them you were injured, but you're like, I need ice for my finger, please? So it was so confusing to me to feel like the help that I was going to be getting in that moment was from, like, an officer. I felt scared to do that. I just was really scared, but I desperately needed help for someone to just get me out, you know? I obviously knew I always took him back every time. That's not how you describe the instances that you say were a pattern for how we got here. And I just didn't want to this time, and knew that in my gut, but I also knew it was going to be hard. Why did you feel scared to get help from the officers? I think just things he had told me in the past, of not trusting police, what they would do to him as a black man, and I didn't want to put him in that situation. Did you tell them all the details regarding your injuries? No. What, in substance, did you tell the officers about your injuries, to the best of your memory? I told them that I had kind of grabbed his phone, and that the injuries were caused by him trying to get the phone off of me, and I was upset, because I found out he was cheating on me, yeah. I'm showing you it has been pre-marked as People's Exhibit 15 for identification purposes. People's 15 marked for identification. Chaudhry stipulates to it all. They're looking at 15. Mr. Jabbari, do you recognize this photograph? Yes. What do you recognize it to be? My hand. Which hand is that? My right hand. Do you know approximately what time it was taken? No. A few hours after I had taken one myself, probably. Do you know who it was taken by? I believe the only people that took photos of my injuries were the police, so... Where were you, if you remember, when this picture was taken? In our little, kind of, walk-in closet area. I'm going to ask for it to be published to the jury. Mr. Jabbari, had your finger changed in appearance since 12:40 a.m.? The night before. Yeah, it was getting kind of... That's a slick question. Mr. Jabbari, had your finger changed in appearance since 12:40 a.m. the night before? Yeah, I think it was kind of getting gradually more and more swollen, I think, because I was kind of being a bit unaware of it. I should have iced it and banded it. So did you not ice it? You probably should have iced it and banded it up or something, but I don't know. It was getting more swollen. So did you not ice it? Because you said you iced it at the club. Had the finger changed in appearance since you left the bar? Just the bruising had gotten darker, and it was bigger. And I'm showing you it is now in evidence as Exhibit 16. Mr. Jabbari, do you recognize this photograph? Yeah. What is the photograph of? My finger, my hand. Do you know who took this photograph? I would assume one of the officers. Is this around the same time as People's Exhibit 15? Yes. Thank you. I'm showing to the witness what is now 17. Mr. Jabbari, do you recognize this photo? Yes. What do you recognize it to be? Me. Approximately what time was this taken? Same time, I think. Do you know who took it? One of the officers. Publish it to the jury. And this is that neck photo with the lines. So, Mr. Jabbari, the photograph of your neck. What does this show in People's Exhibit 17? It shows bruising. And do you know how you sustained that bruising? From Jonathan, in the car. Can you explain that? When he was, and Zuckerman objects, asked and answered. When he was pushing against me and slamming me back into the car, things like that. So you don't know exactly the mechanism. Was it in the car or was it outside the car? Because the prosecution is positing those as two distinct incidents. Different mechanisms. And she's just saying both of it caused this thing that they're looking at in the photo. And she had testified to bruising all over her whole body. And I think this is the only testimony we're going to get from her that there was bruising. And it's like here. Chaudhry, Your Honor, may we approach? Let the record reflect that we did have a sidebar. And I'm going to ask that the people ask a new question. That last question, the objection is sustained. If there was an answer to that last question, it is stricken for the record, and you're to disregard it. Mr. Jabbari, did you know the defendant was going to be arrested? No. Did you ask for the defendant to be arrested? No. What happened after you spoke with officers? But you just said that this was your chance to get help. And now you're like, I didn't ask them to arrest him. How did you see this as your chance to get help and get out? If you didn't know the defendant was going to get arrested, and You didn't ask for, you might not have verbally asked, but you're asking for it. What happened after you spoke with the officers? When I was speaking to the officers, eventually they said, hey, we're going to have to take you. Zuckerman objects, that's sustained. Galloway says I could rephrase. Without getting into the substance of what the officers said, what do you do next? We went to the hospital. Why did you go to the hospital? Because my injuries. And also the nature of the call. Oh, not because it was believed to be an attempted suicide. Her answers are very... She plays dumb a lot. She's sharp sometimes. Did you come to learn what the nature of the call was? Yeah, they believed I was trying to harm myself. Trying to harm yourself is very different than trying to kill yourself. They can overlap, they can lead to each other, one can be necessary for the other, but this goes back to the Jabbari scale of like, kind of like, and extremely like. Harming yourself is like bad. Not just kind of like bad, but like bad. But trying to kill yourself is extremely like bad. And she's trying just to say the like level thing here. That she was only doing the like level thing, not the extremely like bad thing. When you were at the hospital, what if any range of motion did you have in your right middle finger? It was just getting more stiff and the more kind of tired I was feeling it a lot more, but as I said, wasn't affecting anything too much. It was stiffening and it wasn't fully bending like this, but I could move it a bit. When you say stiffening, was it more or less stiffer than it had been when you were at the bar? Way more. Was it more or less stiff than it had been when you spoke to your friend Holly? Yeah, I think throughout the next few weeks, it was just getting a bit more harder to move for the next few weeks. But in that point, I think I was still being led by adrenaline and functionality and things like that, as well as feeling the pain. Okay. If you want the police come help you, this is a chat time. If you want the police to come help you, and they come around, and they're there to help you, Jonathan's in the other room. You don't want him near you in the room hearing, then get him further away from you. Does that make you feel more adrenaline? Or does that make you feel more like relieved? A bit, thank God. Whew. If you're feeling more adrenaline, why could that be? Could that be you're surprised? I'm not saying it's not surprising for police to wake you up, even if you do ultimately want them to be there to help you. But after you've talked to them for a while at this point, they're taking you to the hospital at this point, why are you not feeling pain anymore because of adrenaline? Shouldn't you be relieved that you're getting help? And you're exhausted at this point, but then you're also feeling adrenaline, but then you're exhausted, but then you're feeling adrenaline. You don't know, you're not accurately describing what you felt. You're just not being honest here. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, for you to be amped up because all this is going on seems like you're a bit more panicky, fluttery, probably doing this a lot. Because you've got to figure out what you're going to say in the moment right now. But let's see. Yeah, so let's see. Where am I? Yeah, the battered, when she said the word battered, like, come on. She's a dancer and they're basically naked. Okay, Denise Oates. So Grace Jabbari made her Instagram public when she made that post. It was like her birthday, a day or two after the verdict. She made some posts thanking SFF, Sanctuary for Families New York, the charity that helped her get through all of this, appointed Ross Kramer as her pro bono attorney, all of that. She made that birthday post thanking them. And I went and looked at her Instagram, and the third picture she had there was like literally just her butt cheeks. Her on stage with her performance outfit, the skirt tucked into the waistband with her butt cheeks all out. And I was like, all right, I mean, whatever, do you, girl. Now her Instagram is suddenly private again for some reason. She made it public for the big verdict, made it private now, but her butt cheeks are all up on there. And I think it's tagged in some of Holly Blakey's photos, so, or at least like the crew that they were working with. And maybe that's important to say. So Jabbari kind of had a gap in work, but she had some work in summer of 2023, last year, after this all happened. Maybe she had it booked beforehand, because we do know she had some 2-week gig finally that she was going to work. She was going to leave for on March 26th. But before that, we knew she wasn't working. She didn't plan to work because she didn't have a work visa for New York where she was staying. And then in the summer, in like June and July, she has these work projects with Holly Blakey, which kind of seems to me like you stopped working for a while. Holly said she hadn't heard from you. After this all happens, you're suddenly trying to get back into things, and you go right to your friend Holly to be like, girl, you got any work for me? Like, you just, it's seems like using. It seems like you only matter to me when I want to drink, and Holly doesn't drink, so for Holly, when I need work, or when my whole life can be paid for and sponsored by you. As she describes Jonathan Majors' penthouse, my whole life is in this house. But yeah, she did. Juanita says she weaponized the police, so why not just pack and leave? She wanted help but stayed in his house all night. It makes no sense. She could have left. She was waking up with a hangover. Would that be painful? Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm in my 30s now, and if I have a couple drinks, I feel it the next day, especially if I'm not drinking enough water. I think she's 32. She's like in her 30s. So she's not one of those young spring chickens or whatever where you go out and you can drink 9 drinks and just be fine the next morning and go running. Like, it doesn't really work like that in the 30s anymore. And then, hey, Artemis, you just joined. Whenever Kat sighs at this lady, I can't help but laugh. Yeah, man, you know I'm about to say something. And that guy McFly, she was feigning she was concussed. Thought during the night she was oblivious to, though during the night she was oblivious to the finger. And that's the thing, she skips that whole, what happened next? You lay down because it's warm, and oh, I woke up because police officers woke me up. Like, she just skips over. There's no kind of like descriptions. She just jumps over a whole gap in time. She's literally making it moment by moment. I agree. And then Winter, according to her friend, she iced it at the club. Wow. And I'm going to keep saying this. Chloe says she thinks she remembers Grace asking for ice. But there's another part of Chloe's testimony where she's asked about something she said, and she says, I think I may have used such and such word before to describe it. So Chloe is conscious of her meeting that she had in April with the prosecution. She also met with the prosecution right before she testified. It's possible that in April, the prosecution was like, hey, why are you giving us this statement? Do you remember anything about ice? And she was like, I don't know, maybe there was ice at the club, there were bottles. And then when she's asked in December, do you remember anything about ice? Yeah, I have something in my brain firing off, some type of association between ice and this night. But that recall could have been related just to something the prosecution said in their April 4th, I don't know the exact date, but their April interview with her. Because that's how the brain works. That's what she says, I think I remember something about ice. And then here we have Jabbari saying, oh yeah, in the morning my finger was so much more swollen, I should have iced it or wrapped it up or something, anything. It's a lie. Like, the lying liar that lies. And then Juanita Dark, yeah, why not text him saying she was packing, so come after she's gone? Because that wasn't the outcome she wanted. And Sana, she had the money, she had the card to go to the hotel, but she instead decided to buy champagne bottles, Sana. So, she spent all them big bucks on that champagne, the shots, but yeah, can't just go and stay somewhere safe. She's got to go back to the apartment just to sleep and lay there and be sad that she's alone and try to call people all night. And then adrenaline because she can't believe she's actually to pull this off. Disoriented perhaps, or most definitely because you were passed out. And then she's a leech. Denise, I agree. All right, so let's get back into this. They're going to talk about the hospital treatment, or at least some of it, because I don't think they get too into the alcohol thing. So, when you arrived, oh, so I can't wait to. I didn't get Chloe's transcripts. I think this court reporter, Casey, that these came from, might have been there on Chloe's, the day that Chloe was there. So we could go and grab those. I don't know how many pages they would be, but I can get a quote. Um, but yeah, like that's what I'm thinking. The prosecutor was like, "Yeah, I mean, do you remember anything about ice? You know, could she have possibly iced her finger, at the club?" Because as far as I think they took a statement. I don't think it was like a deposition where the defense attorneys were present. So there's a big difference there between a deposition and a statement. And then when you arrived at the hospital, what, if any, treatment did you receive for your ear? So they cleaned it and they wanted to stitch it back together, but I was too scared to have the needle too close to it. Maybe you're just literally scared of needles, but you've been a big bad Wolverine about pain this entire time. I was too scared to have the needle too close to it. I felt like it was on my bones. So they agreed to just glue it back together. At this point, what, if any, pain did you have in your right arm? I think the doctor's going to come along and say that they can't really stitch that. They just use the liquid seal stitching. Oh my god. She's always got to add some fluff to make it. Oh, it was so bad they wanted to stitch it, but I was like, please, just use the glue. I had a global sense of pain everywhere. Objection, non-responsive. The question was about the right arm. I'm going to overrule that. You could answer that. I wasn't really focusing on specific areas of my body to feel the pain. I was just in a lot of pain. And hungover. You'd already puked. It was everywhere. I felt everywhere. What, if any, treatment did you receive for your right middle finger? I'm sorry, for your right middle finger. They did an x-ray and then shall I continue? And they found that kind of bone there was fractured. I don't know if she's holding her hand up while she's describing it, which is why it was painful. Just that top. And they did, I think it's called a splint or something, where they put something in the middle and they bind it up so you don't use it as much. Let the record reflect when Ms. Jabbari said there, she was pointing to the top of her right middle finger. So indicated. Sorry, I don't mean to be giving you guys the finger. So indicated. Did you tell the hospital staff all the details of the night before? No. Why not? I just didn't want to. I didn't want to tell them at that time. I didn't feel important. I just wanted to be helped. Maybe that's supposed to be it. She either misspoke, maybe it's a transcription error. I just wanted to be helped. I did say about, the kind of, I believe what I said was similar, just that I had told the police officers, just that this happened because of this. There was no kind of intricate detail. We're going to get two signed statements that contradict each other. She gives a whole paragraph here just to say how she didn't tell them anything. Why do you need to give a whole paragraph just to say no? When you were at the hospital, why didn't you feel important? So she did say, I didn't feel important. I didn't want to tell them at the time. I didn't feel important. There's no detail. When you were at the hospital, why didn't you feel important? Is she trying to establish that they weren't listening to her? I think it's a really complex thing to understand myself. Why didn't I just say everything? But I loved him still. It was so confusing, and I didn't want him to get into trouble. Did there come a point in time you told someone you didn't know how you received your injuries? Zuckerman objects. The court sustains. Yeah, because that would have been hearsay. What kinds of physicians did you see at the hospital? I think it was a doctor, x-ray person. I don't know the name. And what was your emotional state each time you were at the hospital? So, I mean, a radiologist, maybe you don't know that term, but didn't you say you've broken bones before and know what pain is? You've never And presumably that was before a relationship with somebody. It's like weird because now she's acting like she's never had to go through like x-rays, but she said that she's had broken bones. And what was your emotional state while you were at the hospital? I was upset, and really just worried. I felt really worried about him, really sad. Can you explain what you mean by worried about him? They had told me that they had arrested him, and I felt very anxious about that. Why is that? I don't know. I just felt really sad. Felt like it was my fault, you know. Yeah, sorry. So she's probably crying. It's okay, because she didn't want that moment to happen. She didn't want to lose him, and the police took him away. And now she's crying talking about thinking about that. She's not crying because she feels bad that he got in trouble. She's crying because it's the visual, it's the actual moment that he was taken away and it was done, done, done. It's okay, take your time. Why did you feel like it was your fault? Because I felt like I should have just lied and said nothing happened so he wasn't in trouble. But you were like, oh, what happened? Did he do this to me? What happened to me? So, did you tell them? Or did you lie? Because you didn't really tell them. You had to walk them into piecing it together without telling them. And you're trying to walk this thin line of reconciling with what you know is on that body cam audio versus keeping up this narrative of why you never mentioned the exact mechanism of how everything happened earlier on. Because I felt like I should have just lied and said nothing happened so he wasn't in trouble. And I knew he would be upset with me, or I just wanted to fix it. Why do you want to fix it? I thought you wanted to get out finally. While you were at the hospital, did there come a time when you saw a psychiatrist? Yeah. Can you explain for the members of the jury? Yeah. I think the nature of them putting me in the hospital, and that was because they were told I had done something to myself. So they can't let me walk freely. So they could check, because that would be irresponsible, I guess. So I went in and met with someone and just told them that it was like a situation with my boyfriend and that he had hurt me and I had not done anything to myself. And she believed me and let me go. Girl, this is one paragraph after you say you didn't want to tell anyone. And then the second you can find your freedom, you're like, it was my boyfriend, he did it. This doesn't make sense. Why did you feel like it was your fault? You should have lied and said nothing happened. Like, this doesn't make sense. So literally, as soon as you're stuck and you just want to leave, you're like, my boyfriend hurt me, but this whole time I just wanted to protect him. And she believed me and let me go. Yeah, object to that. That last part will be stricken. Did you try to commit suicide that night? No. Had you previously tried to commit suicide? Chaudhry objects. Jabbari says no. How long, approximately, to your memory, were you at the hospital? Hours, yeah, a long time. Who, if anyone, were you with at the hospital? My agent and friend, Ben, came to meet me. You said he's your agent? Can you explain that? Yeah, he helped me find work, basically, and he's English. He moved out here, and Holly basically told him to come because I had spoken to her. Objection, hearsay. It's not for the truth of the matter. Well, it kind of is. I guess it's not that big of a deal. Overruled. I'm sorry. Did you get the answer? Yes. That's Casey saying yes. Did there come a time when you were able to leave the hospital? Yes. What was your emotional state at this point when you were able to leave the hospital? Still the same. Really just felt confusion, like, what is going on? Like, really sad. Yeah, just felt sad. Pain and physical pain. Tired, so tired, and hungry. Yeah. So what did you do after you were released? Ben took me to go get some food. What was your emotional state while you got food? Just really sad still, just upset, just devastated. Felt really worried for him. Where did you go get food? Into one of the Soho House chains in New York. Do you remember how you paid for that meal? No, I don't remember. Maybe Ben paid or I did. I can't remember. Why wouldn't you just use Jonathan's card to pay for food if you've used it all this other time? Did there come a time when you returned to the apartment that day? Yes. Why did you return back? Because obviously, I'd informed him that I was going to be and warned Ben when, just tell me when I'm not allowed to say things. It's not for the truth. Let's stop there. Ask a follow-up question. Why didn't you feel safe returning? That's leading. Galloway! Why didn't you feel safe returning to the apartment? Because I was told that objection. Oh, they're objecting it because she's about to say hearsay. That's sustained, sorry. But that's like a leading question anyway. It's okay. When you returned to the apartment, was the defendant present? No. What did you plan, if anything, on doing when you returned to the apartment? I planned on, like, getting a bag of stuff together, and for the job I was about to go back for. Why did she insist she was packing? What did she insist that there's no note letting you know? What did she insist that text message meant? First, for the job I was about to go back for. With this right here, and what she has been helping her do, and she's even going to go into detail about the specific types of clothes she chooses to pack here, are meant for work. It's not for her to pack up her things and move. She's going to make this very clear that she's really only packing for this work job. But we just had all this testimony about how she had resolved to leave, finally, once and for all, and was going to pack and be gone, and just be gone. There's no note. And then right here, she stumbles and tells her whole lie. It's let me see what you guys are peeping. Let's see. A wolf in sheep's clothing. That's what I think, caveman, for sure. Her mommy, maybe it was that 5-block run that had her sore, and she was in heels too. I mean, you've got to be like the heels of your feet, even as a dancer. I don't know. And chocolate goodie. I personally think she fell in the house because she was drunk, and that's how she sustained the injuries. She wasn't asleep. She thought she was gonna have sex with jam. Hungover and naked with bad intentions. Jabroni said, I don't want to get him in trouble. But yeah, that's really laughable. I don't want to get him in trouble, but let me go tell them that he did this to me so I can get up out of here, because I don't want to be sitting in the psychiatric ward. So I'm gonna get him into trouble now for myself, to do what I want to do. And then Artemis, listening to her weave her version of reality makes me think she's done this before. Remember that old boyfriend? I want to know about that. Lana, she sure did not want to leave that penthouse. Her whole life was in it. And in that paragraph, she doesn't even mention, like, I don't want to leave Jonathan. I loved him. Which is, like, usually an element when someone's discussing a pattern of abuse, why victims act the way they do. There's that devoted kind of love and loyalty to the person that's the abuser. And she doesn't actually mention all that once she gets into talking. She's just like, the things, the house, the lifestyle, my stuff here. So that's weird. There was nothing to tell, so she wanted to protect herself. That's exactly it. The way she said, I wanted to tell them that nothing happened. Actually, nothing happened, so what were you telling? Exactly, Rosemary. Winter, because they were told I hurt myself. Or maybe they saw the text messages saying you were gonna hurt yourself. And that's true. So Jonathan Majors was apparently also showing the police officer stuff on his phone. So we know he mentions it in the 911 call, which goes to dispatch and the medical responders that are about to come and show up. Because remember, on the 911 call, dispatch gets into first response, medical response, because the type of the call was somebody's unconscious, I'm concerned about suicide. So it is true that there was a certain nature of the call, but when you're asked to tell the jury something and you keep it vague, you draw it back to keep it vague, and you just say the nature of the call, it's a little disingenuous there, but it's exactly why you ended up in the psychiatric ward at Bellevue. Rosemary, she's a horrible person, and I really think the jury believed her because of her accent. If Amber Heard had said these things and had her American accent, they would have saw through it. And I've thought about that too, not only because of the accent itself, but there's different words, right? You know, in America, we don't call this a jumper, we call it a sweatshirt or a hoodie, you know? But she calls it a jumper, and there's a few other things where there's been some the word choices are different. The ways of saying certain things are different. Um, and that can kind of draw your focus when you're trying to listen to somebody. I still think the jury might have made their decision based on something beyond testimony or evidence. Can't say that for certainty, but it really doesn't seem like they're following and recognizing the inconsistencies in a lot of this. But to be fair, we are reading text on screen. That's a bit advantageous for us. We don't get to see demeanor, but we do still have some cues based on the language here. We know when she says, sorry, do you need a moment? There's some crying going on. We can kind of get some hints at the demeanor and the body language. Artemis asks, is this Galloway's first rodeo? I think so. So probably her first high-profile one. You're right, the five block run will make you sober. Denise says, see, this seems like this has been a constant practice. And that's the thing, like, hearing how she's going through this, and then taking the way she speaks and frames things, and looking at the other incidences through that lens, like, the way she describes those incidents, it's not credible either. And she was trying to hang on to dear life before that check and to be a kept woman. And then did they check it was heated? I don't know. I think it's something that could be listed. I have the address somewhere. Is it the 3 Mercantile? Have I searched for it before? Since I'm traveling, I'm on a laptop and I don't really have my web history. But I have looked up that building. I've looked through some of the real estate listings through it. I think I saw the exact one. It was over $10 million. It had 3 stories. But I never actually looked. I didn't think to look at the details of the property to see if there was a specified heated walk-in closet. But they usually will list heated floors on something like that. So it's something we might be able to verify if we go and look at that. I will look into it after I do this video. Because I want to know, is that closet heated? Bathroom, that kind of makes sense. Heated flooring in general is something that some places have. Maybe the whole top floor is heated. But if it's just the bathroom that's heated, the closet might not also be heated. So, and then, yeah, that guy McFly. I safely tried to ask for help by implying I was attacked. And yeah, no accountability. There was no accountability even in those text messages that they bring in. She was just like, oh, and how could you think that I broke your necklace? And then, I don't know if you've seen it, Rosemary, but Jabbari's attorneys released a statement in response to the Good Morning America interview saying that, oh, it's no surprise that the defendant is taking no accountability for his actions. But then if you watch the interview, he's like, I should have broken up with her. I should have had the courage to leave sooner. We wouldn't be here today. I shouldn't have been texting someone else. I was reckless with her heart. And yet their statement is, oh, he has no accountability. Like, go ahead and project on behalf of your client. But yeah, Solo, I think she was probably still, if not like intoxicated drunk, there's definitely still alcohol in her blood. I have been very drunk before. I have never woke up crying immediately. Yeah, because you need some time to like, especially if you're like hungover and have the spins, you need some time to like mentally process how you got here. Well, you don't remember certain things right away. But then there's also that like physical, like, just you try to lean your head up and you feel the spins. And she had puked already. She says in her testimony she got up and went to the toilet to puke and then laid down and fell asleep just because it was comfy. She doesn't say she laid down because she was already at the toilet because she was nauseous and puking. She says she runs to the toilet so she doesn't get sick in her bed, even though we know she got sick in her bed. But goes to the toilet and pukes, and then separately, just because it happens to be comfy, she falls asleep on the bathroom heated floor. It's just all, like, she can't tell a single story without making sure she makes it sound better. Like, there's no reason to fabricate or fluff half the things she's trying to fluff. But it's compulsive for her. She can't help it. First thing out of her mouth was, did Jonathan do something to me? What happened? Did he do it? You don't even know what happened, and you're already zooming to, was it him? It was him, officer. So, so back to this. She's clearly not planning to pack up and move, to break it up once and for all. Her decision. She's done. She's packing for the job she was about to go on. And Ben Toddy is helping her. So Ben came back with me because I didn't know that I would be able to carry the bag downstairs and things like that. So you can go out and use your hand all night, but now you need help carrying the suitcase. Ben says he didn't want me to. It's objected to. Why were you worried you couldn't carry the bag? I was just so weak at that point. Did you prepare? Yeah, can you imagine being hungover, puking, and you gotta walk up and down 3 flights of stairs to pack? Did you prepare for your trip? Yeah, he helped me pack a bag of like dance clothing and like not very much basically. So she's not even packing a lot. So this is why I'm saying it's not just like I have no choice but to worry about work right now. I'm just gonna pack what I need. She's focused on packing just for work and only work. I just kind of panicked and pointed at a few different tracksuits and dance leggings and things like that. And I was like, that will be fine. Yeah. So she's only taking what she'll need for her dance work. When you say you pointed at it, who was doing the packing? Ben was. And why was that? It was hard for me, kind of, since my finger was strapped together, and because the pain was getting worse. I just couldn't. I just felt really weak. I would maybe grab some, like, underwear or things like that, but he was kind of putting in place and packing the bag for me. Were there times when you were by yourself at the apartment? So, when Ben wanted me to go with him and get a hotel near the airport, and I just felt really exhausted, and I said, look, they're going to tell me if he comes back here, and I'll leave, but at the moment, he's not coming back here. I'm safe. I'm just going to sleep here, so he left. What, if anything, did he do before leaving? Carried my bag downstairs. I got it all ready, so when I decided to leave, it would be like my coat, my shoes, my bag was all there. All I had to do is push it out and go in the elevator, push it out. I didn't have to carry anything. Did you pack anything after Ben left? No. What did you do after Ben left? I felt really, really alone, and I was suddenly, like, hit by the fact I was actually in our apartment, and I didn't like it. So I called my sister and... Is she sniffling? Sorry. And I called my sister and I just said, are you at home? Can I come there? All right. Why don't we do this? Come up to sidebar for 1 second. So the judge calls a sidebar. Oh, there's a lot of text here. I wonder if she had to go back and remove something. That's interesting. So sometimes with transcripts, I think both sides can look at them. But we've seen some things that were stricken that were still not actually stricken from the record, and now we have this, it's lined, it still says 10 lines, and maybe these. I don't know if something had to go and be taken out here. The witness enters. Oh. Oh. So she ran out. And I called my sister and I just said, are you at home? Can I come there? So she runs out of the court crying. The witness has to return to the courtroom. Ms. Jabbari, you're reminded you're still under oath? Yes. May I inquire? Yes. So I wonder if this was... They were talking about bringing her back in and they just ended up removing it from the transcript. Ms. Jabbari, we were talking about you leaving the apartment before the break. Did you take any of the defendant's items when you left the apartment? No. To clarify, where did you go afterwards? My sister's house. While you were at your sister's house, did you interact with the defendant any further that night? No. Did there come a time that night when you did reach out to the defendant? Yes. Why did you do so? I wanted to make him feel safer, I guess. I always felt guilty for the fact that he was there, in a way, because it was over what he had done to me. Yeah, I felt guilty because of what he did to me. This is your accountability problem. Yeah, so I just wanted to reassure him that I didn't tell them to arrest him, or yeah. I just wanted him to know I was going to do all I could. But what did you tell them when you wanted to get out of holding? What did you tell them? I just wanted him to know I was going to do all I could to stop anything going any further. I loved him, and... What, if anything, did you tell him about what he had been charged with? I said that they had told me that they were charging him for a bunch of things, but then one of them was strangulation. And I didn't understand the kind of context around that, and I think I told I think I told it was you on the phone. So she's saying she told Galloway. I said, no, he didn't strangle me in the way that I understood what strangulation was. Did he strangle you in another way that you think strangulation means? So I said you should definitely drop that at all. And then she cleans it up. If you just saw me look down, it's because you just said all of this. I just wanted to make him feel safer. I felt guilty for the fact he was there over what he had done to me. So yeah, I just wanted to tell him, I didn't tell them to arrest him or yeah, I just wanted him to know I was going to do all I could to stop anything going further. But then she gives a whole paragraph testifying how the only thing she tried to stop was a strangulation charge. And she realizes she said it, and she has to say, you should definitely drop that at all. I said you should definitely drop that at all. I said I didn't want there to be charges, that kind of thing, because you just slipped up. You said you're going to do everything to get rid of it, and then you clarify the only thing you tried to clean up was the strangulation charge because you knew that was a bold-faced lie. That's the lie. These two paragraphs right here is her whole narrative. Just crumbled. Why did you send that to the defendant after you had been assaulted by him? Just wanted to know that I wasn't trying to get him in trouble, you know? Did you intend on cooperating with the criminal case? At that point, I just, objection leading, overruled. Yeah, at that point, I wasn't thinking anything beyond what was going on at the moment, and that was just to try to fix the situation we had found ourselves in as best as possible. We had found ourselves in. It just happened for no reason. Who, if anyone, did you tell the defendant was at fault for him being arrested? I don't know exactly what I said, but I think I was saying I told them it was my fault. I grabbed the phone. That's why you attacked me. That kind of thing. You didn't put that part in the text message. Why did you say it was your fault? From when he would get angry at me in the past, I would just kind of put the blame on me. It was a better solution for the both of us. I'm directing your attention to approximately October 25th of 2023. Did you go to a police precinct on that day? Yes. And actually, let's look at these text messages before we go further. Because she says she reaches out once she's at her sister's house. And this is going to be kind of weird. There's no note, just letting you know what happened. He says, goodbye, Grace, leave the keys. It was at 8:58 a.m. I know it's probably small on your screen. At 6 p.m., after she gets out of the hospital. She says, please let me know you're okay when you get this. And she's saying she's doing this because she's worried about his safety. She didn't want him to be arrested. She was looking out for him and worried for him. They assured me that you won't be charged. What did we just see in that paragraph? They didn't assure you you won't be charged. You were on the phone with Galloway talking about... Let's just pull it up. Let's do it again. Where is it? I think I told you on the phone. What, if anything, did you tell him about what he had been charged with? And this is the text message we're reading with. I said they told me they were charging him for a bunch of things, but then one of them was strangulation. Now, with her, they assured me that you won't be charged. This is what she's saying to him. They arrested you, said they had to arrest you as protocol when they saw the injuries on me and they knew we had to fight. I was so angry that they did, and I'm so sorry you're in this position. We'll make sure nothing happens about this. I told them it was my fault for trying to grab your phone. Now, where was that part? I told them it was my fault. I grabbed the phone. That's why you attacked me. That kind of thing. It's a lie. Where is that in this text message? I told them it was my fault for trying to grab your phone. I only just got out of the hospital. Just call me when you're out. And then there's a separate message. I love you. And not for nothing, but there's also, I don't know if my mouse is scrolling on it, but there's like an enter under this line of space. Just call me when you're out. There's space under it. It's like she tried to write something else and maybe changed what she was going to write. Then at some point, somewhat close to this other message, says, I love you. But if we go back to her description, where's that paragraph? I said that they told me that they were charging him for a bunch of things, but then one of them was strangulation, and I didn't understand the kind of context around that. And I think I told, it was you on the phone, Kelly. I said, no, he didn't strangle me the way that I understood what strangulation was. So I said, you should definitely drop that at all. I said I didn't want there to be charges, that kind of thing. They assured me you won't be charged. But yet, you're on the phone responding to one charge and one charge only, the strangulation charge. They're telling you the charging. So why are you saying at 6 p.m. Why are you saying at 6 p.m. they assured you you won't be charged? He was already arrested at this point. So, like, then she jumps to 9:32 p.m. Oh, is this thing like, can I get rid of that? Maybe I can read through it. Let's see. Okay, so 9:32 p.m. They just called again to check on me, and I reiterated how this was not an attack and they do not have my blessing on any charges being placed. I read the paper they gave me about strangulation and said point blank, this did not occur and should be removed immediately. The judge is definitely going to be told this. She ensured this to me. So is she Kelly here? I know you have the best team and there's nothing to worry about. I just want you to know that I'm doing all I can on my end. And this is how she always describes the other incidents. She always did everything she could to make things better. But what is she actually doing? She went and told in holding sometime around 5:45 p.m. after he'd been arrested, yeah, he did all this to me. They'd already asked her about strangulation. So do you get where I'm going with that? For her to be sending this at 9:32, and she's trying to reconcile this text message in her testimony, and she can't do it. But she says, the judge is definitely going to be told this. She ensured this to me. I know you have the best team, and there's nothing to worry about. I just want you to know what I'm doing, all I can on my end. I also said to tell the judge to know that the origin of the call was to do with me collapsing and passing out, and your worry as my partner. And she's claiming she passed out. This is her saying to Jonathan Majors that the origin of the call was me collapsing and passing out. So on March 25th, at 9:32 p.m., she is still maintaining that she collapsed. At 9:32, her words, after the police know, after the hospital knows, and she's talking to Jonathan. This is the person that she has no reason to not say you did something to me. She's testifying that she told him what he did to her in these text messages somewhere. To do with me collapsing and passing out. So she's the one claiming, even though she testified, she just happily chose to lay on the warm floor and go to take a nice nap. 9:32 p.m. on March 25th, she's still maintaining that she collapsed and passed out. She's a liar. Like, this is bad. And your worry as my partner, due to our communication prior, meaning this. His worry because she said, there's no note, just letting you know what happened. Out of care. She promised all will be relayed. And all of this. Her whole testimony is just her trying to convince or get ahead of what she knows Priya is going to ask her about. But why did you text him that you collapsed and passed out on the floor? Why did you tell the people at the hospital, if you're saying you didn't tell anybody, why did you tell them at 5 p.m. that he did something to you so you could get out and leave? Like, it's just insane. Also, hey, Sheed, thanks for the super chat. Did you just get here, Sheed? Because there's been some... there's been some moments. There's been some moments today. Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's see. I'm seeing things. She's a snake. She's a crayon. Let me catch some of these. Rosemary Carter says she has a picture of me. Jabbari has a picture of me at home throwing darts. Good. Get some practice in. Solo Dove, have to ask. No mention of the photo and candles, shrine, and suitcase. She's right-handed. How did it get there? I mean, I guess the idea is Ben was... Wait a minute. This bitch said the suitcase was right at the door for her to push out. So why when the police get there... Oh, because that was Ben Toddy after the arrest. Why was the suitcase... This is so... But still... So the suitcase is there at like 11 a.m. on the first floor, open, with that pillar candle sitting next to it. We can't see a photograph in there, but according to what Priya wrote to the court back in April, there was photographs positioned there too. So the suitcase, she had the suitcase open and sitting on this table, which is kind of in a position... If Jonathan Majors tripped over it, why is the suitcase still open? If you trip over a suitcase that's up on a table, propped open to look like you're packing your things, and someone trips over it, wouldn't the momentum make it shut? Like, the suitcase stuff does not make sense. And somehow she heard him trip over it after passing out. Like, she heard him. Maybe the sound. Maybe on the third floor. She hears all the way on the first floor. She hears this. And she gets so distraught because she hears the noise and she just goes, oh, I'm going to pass out and collapse on the floor. Or fall asleep because it's warm. But yeah. I don't know. That suitcase, man, is really damning to me. That picture of it where it's just sitting there, sitting open. If he tripped over it, why didn't it close? And this is why I need you guys in the chat, because I almost went the wrong way. I forgot that the suitcase was sitting there open before Ben Toddy was there. But thinking about it made me realize, why was it open if he tripped over it? If it's sitting on a table and open, how did he trip over it and it was still sitting open when the police arrive? But again, that only comes up because of, you know, maybe it comes up on cross, and then with Holly Blakey's testimony, which I do have the transcripts for, we'll get to that on another video. But she doesn't volunteer that information here. Remember, she just says, I fell asleep on the floor, and the next thing I knew, the cops woke me up. So, but yeah, let's see. Yeah, Rosemary worked for a job that she doesn't have. When she's describing all her sleeping pills, she takes all these sleeping pills for work, for travel, and she's taking sleeping pills even though she hasn't been working. And then Artemis says the thought of her not living there or him leaving her had never crossed her mind because she's delusional. And then yeah, so Solo Dove, sometimes they transcribe sidebars. Maybe it got left in. Yeah, there's a reason there's those 10 lines there that we're not supposed to have seen. Everything she says is a contradiction. She's scared but present, injured but no pain. Everything's just like this kind of global thing, out-of-body experience, but she also feels present. Passed out text when he arrives, didn't want to tell, instantly implicates him to police. Artemis, she sent those 32 texts. It was 32 calls, but she sent a bunch of texts also. We don't know the exact number, but yeah, just to lie. There should not have been anything to drop because he did not touch you. I wish it worked that way. And then Solo Dove, she didn't want a 72-hour hold because she wanted to catch the bag. She had to go home and get those Rolexes or something, right? Let me say allegedly. Jameer, okay, I'm back. Oh, man. So you gotta watch this on fast speed here. You're gonna be hearing this later. That guy McFly. Yeah, and like are staples for her vocabulary. Yeah, that's why I like when she adds levels to her likes. The kind of like, the extremely like. I think extremely like is my new phrase. Strangulation could be attempted murder. Sure is. I think it's a felony. I don't think they charged him with felony strangulation. Maybe they did because they had taken it down when I was looking at the charges. Everything else was listed as a misdemeanor. But there are strangulation charges. They're scaled up. Yeah, Artemis, but that's why you attacked me. She's inserting something that is never She's telling the court something that isn't in these text messages. And, I mean, I hope Priya brings it up on cross, but she just doesn't say that here. I told them it was my fault for trying to grab your phone. She doesn't say anything about you attacking me. And that's why it's also ridiculous. She tries to say that there's no note, just you knowing what happened was, and we don't know the message before it. She sent 3 messages since 7:47, and this was 7:52. These 3 messages here, we can only see the one. She's saying that the just you knowing what happened is her telling him that you assaulted me. Because she knows there's nothing in these text messages that explicitly says, my finger's fucked up right now. Even though I sent the pictures of my finger and ear as soon as I took them to Holly, I didn't send any of them to you and say, you see what you did to me? Like, this is you. You did this when you were blank. There's nothing in that here. And she had the capability to do it. She took the picture and sent it off to Holly. She could have sent them to Jonathan, but she didn't. Because why would you want to emphasize to someone, if I punch a wall and I bruise up my knuckles, like, would I send a picture to my landlord and be like, here's a picture of my hand from punching your wall. Your wall did this to me. Doesn't make sense. Let's see. Where's the x-ray? They bring it in with the doctor, I think. And I think they do that because it's like, you know, medical opinion. They're going to lay the foundation with the doctor. And then, who is this we? Does she have a mouth in her pocket? And that guy McFly talking about the interview. He apologized for being chased through the city and having the police weaponized against him. Yeah, the statement from the attorneys about the GMA interview was just frustrating. Rosemary, also, were you trying to grab his phone, or did he have to pry the phone out of your hand? Especially, and Jonathan Major's interview is not under oath, it's not testimony in a court of law, but he says, in the public, she never got my phone. I was holding it the whole time and just going, here, you want to see it? And she tried to grab it. She didn't get it. That's why she was clawing at me. But Jabbari says she was flicking him with the range of motion of her finger, never scratching him. Why is she acting like she is shopping and she could put something back that doesn't fit? No, put the strangulation bag. I don't want that one, but add harassment. Girl, she's crazy. Yeah, she's like sitting on the phone with Kelly like, hey girl, we're not going to do that strangulation charge today. I'm not feeling it, but I was feeling it earlier. I'm not feeling it anymore, you know. What did she say? I feel hideous. I feel invisible. She's like, I'm feeling hideous today. I don't want to do the strangulation bag. It's just nuts. Does she only break down during cross-examination? No. So she's, a few times, she ran out of the room wherever that gap in the transcript is. That 10 lines of blank text. She ran out of the court crying. I forget. I already forget. It was right after she said she was going to call her sister, because that was the final moment. When she goes to her sister's, Ben had left, she was alone, and at 9:32, she's trying one more time. She had gotten radio silence. I love you, no answer. Just call me when you're out. I just got out of the hospital. Gap in time. She goes to her sister's, she sends this message. She's crying thinking about it, so she has to run out of the courtroom, because this is the end. This is he still hasn't answered. He still hasn't come back to me, even though I'm texting him and blowing up his phone. It's done. But yeah. And yeah, I do think it's malicious prosecution, that guy McFly. So, and yeah, it's malicious as fuck. Yeah. She thought, after all this, that we're just gonna work it out. I know you have a good team. And this text message is crazy because, you know, she's acting like she always does everything she can to fix a problem that she never caused. She takes no accountability, but she does everything to solve all the problems all the time. But then she's also saying, you have a great team. Your team can do it. You can handle it. Your team that I went and tried to tell you were suicidal and had a temper or whatever, they're going to solve this all for you. And then what do they do? What do? They drop him. Because Priya probably already had it in her head from your stories that maybe he's bad news because she was saying all this horrible stuff. So now we're inclined to believe the worst about this arrest, and we don't want to represent him. So she didn't just sabotage, she gets him arrested, but then she says, the team that I went to and put these rumors in their ear, I know they'll handle it for you. Just nuts. I think in the picture of the bruising on her neck, from how it was actually on this side. I don't know. It's a good question, Kimberlyn. But I feel like in the picture, I remember, like, if I'm picturing how it was her left side, which her ear was over here. That could have just been from her, like, hitting the captain's seat, like, trying to do something. I don't know. Her description of her body movements during all the testimony just doesn't make sense. So let's see. Where was I before I scrolled? The charges. Oh, the cooperation. Okay, I think I was here. Okay, so did you intend on cooperating with the criminal case? At that point, and they object, it's overruled. Yeah, at that point, I wasn't thinking anything beyond what was going on at the moment, and that was just to try to fix the situation we had found ourselves in as best as possible. Who, if anyone, did you tell the defendant was at fault for him being arrested? I don't know exactly what I said, but I think I was saying I told him it was my fault. I grabbed the phone. Oh no, I did read this. That's why you attacked me, that kind of thing. The arrest. I'm directing your attention to approximately October 25th of 2023. Did you go to a police precinct on that day? Yes. And remember, Variety and I think Rolling Stone, they were all like, the messenger's reporting she's going to turn herself in for arrest, but that's not true. The DA said there's not going to be an arrest. But then there was. Why did you go to a police precinct? Because they were trying to, I don't know. That should be speculation. I don't know the wording for it. I was still a bit unsure over the whole thing, but he had put a few months in. This is speculation if you keep saying you don't know, and they object, but the court overrules it. They had put a few months in, about 4 months, I think, 3 or 4 months after this whole situation had happened. They put in a cross complaint saying that I was the one who attacked him, and because of, sorry. So is she crying? I need like a cry button, a cry counter. It's okay. What did you do when you arrived at the precinct? I walked in with some of the people. I walked in with some people. So you don't want to say Ross Kramer. You walked in with Ross Kramer, who is part of the board or something for Sanctuary for Families New York, the nonprofit that has helped you. You walk in with him and had to get I just sat in a room next to the detectives and I just signed a few papers and got fingerprints and photos taken for an arrest, I guess. And who, if anyone, was outside the precinct when you first arrived? I didn't see anyone outside when I first arrived. Who, if anyone, was outside the precinct when you left? About 30 to 40 reporters, cameras, and stuff. What is your understanding of the status of those? So they're trying to establish probably, one, that she has to deal with stress and turmoil as a victim, being darvoed by her abuser, sending the police after her and trying to reverse the roles. But it seems like they're also trying to hint that someone told these reporters to be here. Now, I have a problem with this because there were only three different sources for photos of this moment. So why were there 30 to 40 reporters? I think that's a huge hyperbole. Because it was pretty hard to find pictures of her coming out at this moment with Ross Kramer. But anyway, what is your understanding of the status of those charges? They don't exist. Interesting. Now, directing your attention back a little bit to March 25th, 2023, you mentioned that you had a flight on the 26th. Yes. How did you get to the airport? I believe I called an Uber, or maybe I'd have to have my memory refreshed, but it could have been a pre-booked car. So I think she already paid for it and it was arranged by like Priya or something. You took a car to the airport? Yeah, yeah. Do you remember how you paid for that car ride? Just with the car card I'd been using, yeah. Why did you do that? I wasn't really thinking about other than just getting home, so really, I probably should have used my original debit card, sure. But I just wasn't thinking about changing cards on my phone at this point. I was just like, get me home, get me out of here. No, you're going on a work trip. In the coming days, how, if at all, did your pain level change? Well, but why didn't you? Oh, I just will go use this card to go stay somewhere else and get out of this penthouse. You didn't want to leave when Ben Toddy told you to leave. And in fact, you only thought to go to your sister's because you felt alone, not because you were scared. In the coming days, how, if at all, did your pain level change? Well, I got home and got to my parents' house. So she's staying at her parents' house. And I think my mom kind of had a look at me and realized there was a lot more bruising than I'd kind of registered. I didn't feel comfortable looking at my body at that point. I was in a lot of pain, so my pain level was high still. I went to the doctors again and to the hospital and just, yeah. What was the pain like in your ear in the coming weeks? It was very, very sore, yes. Was it different at all from how you had experienced it previously? Well, let me rephrase the question. That was badly worded. Was the pain in your ear different than it was on March 25th? Yeah, it was a different kind of pain because it was healing, you know. It had been glued back to my head, and it was kind of achy, and that kind of healing pain. I still couldn't lie on the right side of my head. Still couldn't yeah, it was still painful. I wonder if she wanted stronger pills because she couldn't sleep because of the pain. It was still painful, a bit different kind of pain, I guess. There was no adrenaline left in my body. I was just feeling it all very much at this point. Which ear was that? My right ear. Okay, let the record reflect the witness is indicated towards her right ear. What was your pain like in your head after March 25th, 2023? Yeah, it was very sore. I had a few bruises that I probably didn't notice. My mom kind of grabbed me and just, yeah, you can't. Objection. Follow up, that will be sustained. Just ask the question in a different way. That's okay. How did the pain in your head change a week after the assault? Yeah, I was. Objection as to argument and question. I can rephrase. How did the pain in your head change the week after the incident with the defendant? It was more kind of like close to where the bruising was on my head, but still felt painful, yes. Where was the bruising? It was kind of like a bruise on the back of my head. I think there was one on the front, too. And it just felt, then the bruising kind of here, around my ear as well. How long did it take before you experienced that bruising? I don't know, because I felt so kind of small. I didn't really want to look at myself, so it was more people telling me I was bruised, as opposed to me looking. But you're describing bruises based on pain, and you have awareness of these bruises. You describe where you're aware that they are. And then you're saying that other people told you were bruised because you didn't want to look at yourself because you felt so small. Objection sustained, stricken. Sorry. Move to strike, I struck it. How did the pain in your finger change over time? Yeah, I guess because it is tied together, I could do less with it. The pain was still very, very high. As I said, it's a different kind of pain when something is healing as opposed to when it's first been hurt. But for example, I couldn't put any weight on my hand, flat, because that would really hurt it. Things like that. Or yeah, if I would just knock it a little bit, it would really hurt. What if any bruising or withdrawn? What if any bleeding did you experience in your right ear in the weeks coming? None. It was all sealed back together with glue. And on March 25th, where, if at all, was the bleeding on your right ear? Objection asked and answered. The court agrees. Galloway says okay. Mr. Jabbari, approximately how long did it take before you were free of pain? I would say no sooner than a month, probably a bit after a month, 7 weeks-ish. And even then, the ear took so long, I think it's like a very delicate place on your head, so... How has your life been impacted from the incident on March 25th, 2023? Objection, that's sustained, because that's speculation. Perez asked to approach. Alright, after we just had a sidebar where the parties both discussed the issue with me, that objection is overruled. You can ask the question. Mr. Bari, how has this incident impacted your life since March 25th, 2023? Extremely negatively, yeah. Can you explain what you mean by that? Just been a lot of unwanted attention over a really difficult period of my life. One I would like to keep quite private. Gee, so now you understand. And I've had to tell friends and family, like, everything, and that's been really hard. But you were talking to your friends in all of the other incidences except the dog one. I'm a very private person, so that part has been really hard to kind of, the show of it all. The stuff that's been said about me is untrue, and just having to take it, it's like the abuse that I was in has not ended. Well, thank you, nothing further. All right. And then Chaudhry asks if the witness wants to step out. The witness comes back in. So that's going to move into direct testimony. Let's see. Yeah, Solo Dove. Weird how she's hired for movement coaching, but her own body, she's not aware. She's a straight up covert narcissist. The way I see it, speaking from experience, they are destructive manipulators and prey on vulnerabilities and empathy. And yeah, it's like now, I think you said that a few minutes ago, Dante, but now where we are in reading this, she's like finally admitting she understands the importance of privacy, the importance of, you know, being able to speak with people, or the pressure of having to speak with people about what's going on. This is the only time she says she feels it, but yet she said she's had privacy. She makes all these other instances sound out, I had to be quiet, I didn't want to tell people things, but she's also saying this is the first time she had to feel like this, because she didn't actually feel the way she's saying she tells us she feels for the September incident, the July incident, any of that. Like, and she didn't have empathy when Jonathan Majors expressed having these concerns and issues. But now that she has to go through something that's difficult because people are scrutinizing her and looking at the video surveillance footage of her standing outside, pushing her hair back with her ears, going and drinking. Back in September, we didn't even know she chased after him like that. We only had that surveillance video, and we're like, how is she just going up to these people and being like, Jonathan Majors is my boyfriend? Like, that's all we had, and that's what she's saying is, like, burning her here. The fact that we're talking about all that stuff. Jabroni is a very private person, and this whole ordeal was hard for her only. That's the truth. And she's got a whole, I'm pouring water, I'm not like, you hear like a pee noise on the side, it's just water. But it's like, she's working with a whole nonprofit. This nonprofit is helping her. Like, a nonprofit that they have funds and resources to help victims. And here we are at the very end of it, her being like, oh, uh-oh, this whole ordeal is hard for me only. Like, she has no empathy at all. I want her canceled for working her in America, because to me that's just making, which she did okay, and her being a substance abuse person is being allowed on set, and that's an insurance nightmare. So that's an insurance nightmare for one. But I think Chaudhry brings it up on cross. Grace starts to get therapy. And since the prosecution is done with direct, it's interesting that the prosecution didn't bring up that Grace Jabbari started to go to therapy when this court thing started happening. Because if it was something like, what happened to me was so traumatic as a victim, I needed help, I feel like the prosecution would have asked about it. But we don't see that question. We're only going to see that come up on cross, because it's kind of like, you have an issue with something, probably substance abuse. That seems like a likely contender that you have to go and get therapy for. And Flavio says, her family must have suffered a lot with her behavior. They were silent and very uncomfortable in court. Explains why they left testifying early. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Were they there for the second day of her testimony? Like, are they here during this part? What if they left like midday as soon as the prosecution was done with their questions because they didn't want to hear what Chaudhry was going to come out and say? But let's see. So this is about halfway through. So let's do this. I'm going to end this stream and then probably sometime today at some point. I don't have a guaranteed time, but I'll pop back on. We can do some cross and maybe I'll get with Danny and see if she wants to come on, because cross is probably going to be the good stuff. But now, if you've watched all of these transcript videos so far, you know what Grace Jabbari has said so far. And cross-examination can be interesting on its own, but going into cross-examination, knowing what's already been said, how it's been presented, that's where, if you think inconsistencies were already obvious, they're going to be more obvious on cross. That's just the nature of it. So to keep this as a direct testimony video, I'm going to end the stream. I'm going to do some other work I have, eat some lunch, and then, I don't know, early evening for me, I'm in Central Time. It's 1 o'clock Central Time. I don't know, so like maybe in like 6 or 7 hours, pop on another live, we'll start cross-examination, and I'm sure that'll be fun. So see you guys all then. Thanks for tuning in on this part. If you think of any other inconsistencies, you can leave them in a comment, send it on X, point them out, because that's what helps other people see why this case is such